In New York, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. Congresswoman, great to see you today. I'll start by asking you your thoughts on two young officers just among the latest lost now in New York.
Today is just an incredibly heartbreaking day for our city. These officers gave their life selflessly, and we owe it to them. We owe it to their families. We owe it to their brothers and sisters in the NYPD to ensure that our government has their back, that our government gives them the tools that they need to do their job, and that we repeal these disastrous policies at the city and the state level that have made our streets less safe. And we also owe it to the citizens of New York to put in place policies that make sense. You can't keep letting criminals back on the streets. They are now emboldened because they see that our politicians are not serious about crime. The bail law in Albany, 9 out of 10 individuals caught with an illegal firearm are being released back onto the street. 50% of those that actually shoot someone are being released back onto the street. And our governor is saying that she doesn't want to make any changes. That, to me, is outrageous. And it's not just that. It's the rhetoric we hear from our prosecutors like Alvin Bragg, who do say that they're saying that they're not going to prosecute crimes. No more life without parole for murder. They're going to prosecute drug crimes as possession at a time when we are seeing fentanyl, the leading cause of death among 18 to 45-year-olds. It's completely outrageous, and they have to stop. And I hope our politicians here in New York, my colleagues, are listening to the words of the widow who is crying out for support for the NYPD.
Yeah, it is just crushing to listen to her, to see these young lives gone, and to hear the pain in her voice and to hear the frustration, too, over these policies. It sounds like there is some bipartisan coming together on making some changes there. We've heard the mayor, Eric Adams, a Democrat, talk about this, about bail reform, giving judges more discretion and when they make decisions about letting people out. But I want to read something from New York State Senator Jessica Ramos there, who is a Democrat. She says, blaming our state's bail reform laws for a national gun control crisis is just the latest in a long history of fear-mongering dog whistles. 80% of those released on bail had no further run-ins with the police. Don't fall for it. How do you respond to her tweet?
Tens of thousands of individuals who are caught and released are repeat criminals, and tens of thousands of those who are arrested go on to now commit another crime. That is the reality of the bail law of the state of New York. The court has made this information public, and quite frankly, I think it's outrageous when we talk about a gun epidemic that we're seeing, again, 9 out of 10 individuals caught with an illegal firearm being released back onto the street. I mean, what does she have to say about that? I mean, the reality is that these policies are not working. They're not considering somebody's criminal history, and they're not considering someone's dangerousness and likelihood to commit another crime. How many times do you open up the newspaper and see an individual who's released back onto the street who has 10, 20, maybe even 30 prior arrests? We are seeing career criminals back onto the street, and Eric Adams, to his credit, is saying that he wants to consider dangerousness. We're the only state in the country to not consider that when setting these rules. And to his credit, he's also implementing the plainclothes unit, which is something that I've also long advocated to be corrected, because Mayor de Blasio disbanded that unit that was going after gangs and guns. So I think if he does those things, if he finally gets through the radicals in Albany and gets some changes to this bail law, and he appoints better judges, then we will see some real significant changes in New York. A 16-year-old who shot a cop was released back onto the street this week because the judge decided not to hold him without bail, which is what the prosecutors were asking for. And so now he's also on the street. And the judge that did that was appointed by the previous mayor, and he had released 2 individuals prior who went out and then killed somebody. So the reality is these policies have consequences.
We do. And as you said, it's not just for our officers who we owe an incredible debt of gratitude to every day, but it's constituents and people out on the streets there, too. All of us who need that protection. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Sandra, I mean, this is just the latest example. All week we've been talking about cases of officers being gunned down.
Sadly. And that news of those Houston officers shot came in right